Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Resonate on a very drizzly day in December, but we are looking forward to a wonderful conversation this morning. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest to you. This is for those of you who've forgotten what the Resonate is. This is the chat show in which I just get to talk to people, new friends and old, about what's getting them going, what's either getting them out of bed in the morning or keeping them awake at night. It could be either of those questions. But today, I really am excited to introduce to you Stuart Murray-Williams. Stuart, hi, this morning. You there?
Good morning, yes. Hi, Phil.
Good morning, Stuart. Stuart is, he's a theologian, he's an author, he's a church planter, and I've known of Stuart for many years at a distance, and I've had the privilege of getting to know Stuart a little bit more over the last few months as a conversation is emerging around church planting and what's next in London in the current scene and how we can collaborate a little bit. So, Stuart, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I'd love to find out what's getting you going at the moment, Stuart. What's on your heart over your cornflakes in the morning? What are you thinking most days?
Yes, it was good to get your email a little while ago asking me what was the kind of kairos moment or what were the themes that were engaging me. It made me think back to some conversations I was involved in during the first lockdown. So back in sort of May, June time, a series of conversations under the rubric Analysing the Apocalypse.
Wow.
Which I thought was a brilliant title. The pandemic at that stage was very new, and the word unprecedented was being used an unprecedented number of times by politicians and commentators. And apocalypse carries with it the sort of feeling of disaster, of doom and gloom, of familiar things coming to an end. But actually, as I'm sure you and most of those who listen to this will know, it simply means unveiling. It's the revelation word. And so the idea of this series of conversations was, well, let's stop and take a look. What have we begun to see that was previously hidden or which we had willfully ignored before? An opportunity to draw back the curtain, if you like, and look at what's really going on in church and society. And it was a conversation that involved economists, theologians, philosophers, psychologists. It was a really rich conversation. And all kinds of things became part of that conversation. People reflecting on what they were suddenly newly aware of, things that were now perhaps obvious, but which they hadn't seen before. And I found that fascinating and realized that something similar was happening at a more popular level as well. We were, for example, realizing that the people who really make a difference in society are not ones that we have valued. So the emergency workers and the teachers, carers, and the people collecting our rubbish and so on. Suddenly there was a re-evaluating of what jobs really matter.
It's really been incredible, hasn't it? Just to see the shift in people's awareness of things and appreciation of things. It really has been an apocalypse in that respect. Absolutely.
I think something else that I noticed was just a realization that we can do so much more working from home and virtually than we realized. And yes, there are downsides to that. We miss the community, we miss the conversations over coffee, that kind of thing. But there's an amazing amount we can actually do through the available technology. I think another thing was, there is a magic money tree that Tory politicians told us wasn't there, but actually it is. And there's a remarkable resilience within our economy if we have the need for it. But also some negative things. So there's been massive reduction in traveling, air flights and car journeys, that kind of thing. And yet the evidence seems to suggest it's only made a tiny, tiny impact on the climate emergency. And so it perhaps revealed something of the enormous challenge that lies ahead for that. So it just seems to me it's been an opportunity to look at things in a fresh way.
There's so many shifts and changes that if you're scanning the horizon, as it were, what out of them is really landing for you, Stuart, that you think, I need to address this, I can address this, or we could address this?
Yeah, I guess as someone who's been involved with church and church planting in particular for many years, I have, I suppose, particularly been focusing on what does this mean for the church? What does this mean for mission? What does this mean for discipleship? I guess a phrase that was used a lot during the first few months was a new normal. There was a sense of, well, we don't want to go back to the way things were. We want a new normal. It's an opportunity to think and act and live differently. And I think that hope hasn't completely disappeared, although I'm worried that over the last few weeks, I've increasingly heard the phrase, let's go back to normal, particularly now we have a vaccine coming. We can go back to the way things were. And I think that's something which risks losing something of the potential of these last few months, really. So I guess I've been asking the question in terms of church life, what will we do once we can meet together again? What will church be like? What will we no longer do? What have we learned during this time? How much do we want to go back to the way things were? And how much do we want things to be different? And what would it mean to plant post-pandemic churches? What would they be like?
Post-pandemic churches, planting post-pandemic churches. That's got a great ring to it. I like that.
I think there's at least an article, maybe even a book in that, but we shall see. Now, I guess, the Christian community is very diverse. There are bound to be lots of different answers to that. And I'm sure that some churches will simply want to go back to doing everything they did before, in the same way that I think many Zoom churches have effectively been putting on Zoom everything they were trying to do before. And that's be less than creative, I think. I'm also wary that many church leaders are very weary. There's a lot of stress around. People trying to cope with all the kind of distant pastoral care, people struggling with new technologies and all kinds of things. I've had a number of conversations with church leaders who are off work with stress at the moment, and I think that's going to make it difficult to think creatively. But I hope it'll happen.
I'm actually discovering, I think the opening discussion for many people is, how do I live more sustainably? And how do I minister and lead more sustainably? That seems to me that you've got to start with that conversation for many.
Yes, I think that's right. And I think, and I've been arguing for a number of years that we need to think more simply about church. Too many churches are just too busy, wearing one another out, too complicated. This might be an opportunity to scale back significantly,
slim down,
and do the things that really matter. The thing that I've heard again and again is what people have really missed is not the preaching, it's not the singing, it's community, it's being together. And that's a very simple thing, but it's actually something we perhaps need to take very seriously, that church is more about community than it is about the activities that we sometimes put around that. People miss simply chatting with each other over coffee. It doesn't anything very complicated. I think also what I've picked up is that many families in particular are really enjoying having extra time together. And I wonder whether many will refuse to go back to the kind of busyness of previous church life. We may need to scale back in terms of the number of meetings as well as what we do in them.
Absolutely. I think anything that moving forward has got to be centered around the home and around the core of family life for it to be kind of attractive or generative. And I think there's that realization that the things that they value most are family and community. That's the massive reflection, isn't it?
I think also it's been, I suppose, again, apocalypse is the word to use. It's been a revelation to many people of how much they're dependent on Sunday services, on regular meetings. And for some people, that's been quite disconcerting. For others, I think it's been a great opportunity to take more responsibility for discipleship. How do I sustain my relationship with God? How do I continue to grow as a follower of Jesus when I don't have all the support around me? Now, I'm not suggesting that we move into kind of individualistic discipleship. That's not helpful either. But I think a greater balance between what we take responsibility for ourselves and what we need the community for might be something that could emerge.
Wonderful. So helping people finding more simple, stripped back ways of gathering people, that means that they are taking the responsibility for how they develop their discipleship and strengthen community. I'm loving this. I must say, you must have very long breakfasts, though, Stuart, to be able to ponder all this every morning.
Yeah, well, it's been quite a long lockdown. We've been in tier 3 here in Kent for quite a while, and so there's been plenty of time to reflect. And it does seem to me this is a great opportunity, in spite of all the suffering and all the pain and all the frustration. That's why I think this Analyzing the Apocalypse title really resonated with me. Let's not waste the opportunity. This is an opportunity to stop, to reflect, to consider new possibilities, to really imagine a new normal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think another thing that I've noticed is people are getting to know neighbours in deeper and fresh ways. You know, I hear that all over the place, and that's also important, I think, as we think about church and mission going forward. We've been released from some of our church responsibilities just to get to know neighbours, to make friends. And that's something, in a sense, we've been encouraging people to do for years, but it's beginning to happen. And the potential of that is enormous.
It is. I think the challenge of getting to know them while they're shielding and through all the different levels of lockdown has been a bit more challenging.
Yeah.
But I agree. Certainly just hanging out in our park, just being more physically present and available has led to so many more conversations and connections in the last year. Yeah.
I also think something that's struck me very early on was that it wasn't the church in many places that took the initiative in terms of caring for the local community. All kinds of people, all kinds of communities stepped up very quickly, and often the church was left a bit behind and catching up. And that, you know, was interesting and disconcerting as well, I think. And you know, maybe there's some theological reflection to do on that. We have seen so much goodness and generosity and kindness and resilience in our communities. And the church hasn't been the initiator. It's often been, or maybe a junior partner, but often catching up. What does that mean in terms of our understanding of people, of how God is at work beyond the church as well as within it? I think there's something quite profound there, which will, again, make a difference in terms of our understanding of mission going forwards.
Yes. There's something in people that we've failed to recognize, that they want to serve, they want to give, they want to bless, they want to be involved in a community that does those things. And we've not always been on the forefront of those things. I mean, the people do champion the projects that are going around, but many of them will be very familiar with those few core, well done projects. But as a whole, you're absolutely right. We've not been the forerunners of many of what's gone on to help and serve. But more to come, we're hoping.
Yes, but I think, you know, as a minority community, which is what we are now in a post-Christendom world, we are going to need to work with others. We can't simply run everything, control everything, dominate everything, initiate everything. And perhaps we never should have done. Perhaps we need to see ourselves much more as being part of the wider work of what God is doing in society.
Yes, that's the conversation you've always been good at framing, Stuart. We are here on the margins, and we've got to learn how to serve in a way that isn't assuming power, but is actually, and I do love that. I mean, I see that in the life of Jesus. He started at the margins, and he didn't move to the center and did address things at the center, but that came out of that upsurge of what was carrying it forward as a movement from the margins to the center. Yes. Well, I'm going to have another interview with you about that one.
Okay. I think I've seen a real change in church planting in recent years as well. That's church planters increasingly now recognise that they are going into contexts where God is already at work, and their role is to join in, not simply to imagine that they bring everything with them. Now, it doesn't mean that church planters have nothing to bring. It doesn't mean we have nothing as Christians that is distinctive. But we are not the initiators, God is, and we join in with what God is doing and try to find our place within that. I think that's become a distinctive mark of church planting in the last 10 years, very different from previously, and I'm very encouraged by that.
Yes, absolutely. People connecting, finding the people piece, doing and entering into their communities. That's definitely been a move that I've seen taking place. So we're looking to see more of that, encourage it, help people to grow their fluency in doing that. That's really our heart through the reachlondon.org, and to see how we can help church leaders with that journey. So we're going to see more of Stuart in times to come, and I think he's becoming one of our resident theologians as well. So we're looking forward to hearing more from you, Stuart. Do check out, folks, the Crucible course. There's a new one coming up in 21. Is that right, Stuart?
Yes, we've taken the Crucible course online, cruciblecourse.org.uk if you want information, a variety of modules for Mission on the Margins, effectively.
Highly recommend the Crucible course. It is just so brilliant. Everybody I know who's done that course has spoken so highly of it. It's given them so much fluency in our cultural and spiritual environment. Stuart, thank you very much for joining me this morning, and every blessing to you as you ponder your Kairos moments over your cornflakes in the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Good to talk to you. Okay.
Yeah, speak again soon.
Okay. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.